Okay, hello. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get into this episode, I wanted to do something real quick. Just a small request I have as we prepare to turn over the calendars to a new NBA season. I want to ask my fellow Mavs fans to enjoy this season. Enjoy it. Focus on what is in front of us, the opportunity we have, how far we can go with this team. I feel like I'm already seeing way too much talk about next offseason. If we spend all year talking about next offseason, we're not appreciating the players in front of us, the talent in front of us, the opportunity that this current season presents. Luka's being talked about as an MVP candidate. The Mavs are being talked about as a top 5 team in the NBA. Let's talk about how far this team can go. Let's talk about that. I don't want to hear a bunch of talk about what trade we can make or who we can get in the offseason. That's not who I want us to be as a fan base. That's what those other teams do. That's not what the Mavs do. I understand you might be a little perplexed because that's what we've been doing for a few years now, but those days are behind us. We are a playoff team. Our goals should be focused on competing with what we have on the team right now. So if you want to be speculative, go ahead and do that. Just don't do it with me. I don't want to answer a bunch of questions about who we can target in the offseason and things like that. So this is the notice right now up front. I will not be paying any attention to those questions. I'm not thinking about that. I want to focus on the right now. I'll be glad when this whole Giannis decision saga is behind us. I'm really hoping he does the Supermax before the 21st because I'm going to be so annoyed watching all the speculation all season. But I'm going to do my best to ignore it regardless. So, again, enjoy this team. Enjoy the opportunity that this season presents. And when we get eliminated from the playoffs, if that occurs, or we win the title, hey, who knows? Then we can start talking about the offseason. And with that said, we're going to get into the actual podcast now. Hello and welcome back yet again to the Bibbs Corner podcast. I am your host, as always, Mike Bibbins, on Twitter at Bibbs Corner for all the sports content. And I'm coming to you today with a pre-preseason mailbag. Mostly questions. I do have some housekeeping I want to do up front, so let's get into that. First of all, a huge thank you to all the podcasters who joined me for the season preview pieces that released last weekend. 2 giant podcasts, both 2 hours long, interviews with people from 5 different podcasts on each. They were very well received, I believe, and everybody brought their A game, so I definitely appreciate that. Nobody was just showing up. So quick thank you to Dalton, Reese, Kenny, Sydney, Lauren, Grant, Brown J, and Faisal, Andrew, Ben, and Black J, Don and Ruben, Reed from Ballscast. Thank you all, and apologies to the J's. I had to make sure I distinguished y'all. But thank everybody for coming through. Again, it was a lot of fun. It was very difficult on my body, but a lot of fun. I thought we got into some good stuff, and hopefully some new people were introduced to you, and I don't know, maybe you got some new listeners out of it. What else do we have on the docket? Okay, this past week I did make appearances on 2 other podcasts. First of all, I appeared on Bruh WTF, and that's BRUH WTF with my man Mike and Hawk, talking hip hop, best albums of all time, best 3 album runs of all time. top 5 dead or alive, best mixtapes of all time, all that good stuff. So check out Bruh WTF podcast if you want to check out that conversation. I had a good time with them. Probably going to be back on that podcast very frequently. Also made an appearance with Reese Kenny in a brief cameo by 44th President Barack Obama on the Mind of Reese Mavs Roundtable. I had a lot of fun on that one, talking trash mostly, and raw and unfiltered. So definitely check that out. If you know anything about Reese or Kenny, you know things probably got a little crazy over there. So definitely check that out. Upcoming appearances. This coming week, I plan to, and I'm 4 months late on this. I had some personal stuff come up the last time I was supposed to be joining Jay, Fazal, and Rohan over on the Unfiltered Tiger Sweat podcast, but I'm hoping to make that happen this coming week. We're going to be talking albums of the year for 2020. So I think I put out a call for people to send me albums they wanted me to listen to that I maybe hadn't. So I'm going to be binging those over the weekend. And should be recording that sometime next week. And then I'm also potentially going to be joining at least one of the guys from Buckets and Beyond. Again, if you haven't checked them out yet, definitely do it. Should be maybe joining, I'll say, them for some Spider-Man MCU talk. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I'll always share links when it goes down. And then finally, the last thing I have to get to, if you go to my Twitter account, and that's the @BibsCorner Twitter account, my pinned tweet is a survey. I'm looking to get some feedback from the community. I think I have a pretty strong listener base at this point, and I love interacting with everybody, and I encourage feedback, negative or positive. So I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to influence the direction of the show. It's a very short survey. I think it's 10 total questions. Most of them are multiple choice or like multiple answer. You can select more than one. A few people have already done it, and I'm just a couple responses short of my minimum goal on that, really, which thank you to everybody who's already done it. So if you have a minute or two, I know I said 2 to 5 minutes initially. It won't take you 5 minutes unless you write me an essay in the feedback portion. I'll take you a minute or two, knock that out. I do appreciate it. Again, that's on my pinned tweet. It's a survey, a link. It's very simple. Not very invasive. You don't have to put your name on it if you don't want. And I'm thinking I might try to do a little something for the people that fill it out. And I'll let you guys know if I can make that happen or not. All right, so that's really all I have for the housekeeping portion. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll get straight into these questions. Okay, welcome back. So we have moved now to the question portion of the mailbag, which is what you've all been waiting for. I think I got about 14 or 15 questions here, so let's get into it. First question comes from @MavSlander, who said, "Will you invite me to join your podcast someday?" Of course I will. I don't think I've been stingy with the podcast invites. Definitely enjoy having guests on. People seem to like the guest appearances, so we just have to make it happen, man. Send me a DM. I'll try to get you in the schedule. It's going to be tough during the season. That's why I tried to do a bunch of guest appearances in the off season, because I'm going to be mostly doing recaps, and I don't want to flood the airwaves with content. So between the recaps, it's gonna be interesting to see what kind of content I'm gonna be doing in between the recaps. So stay tuned for that. And but definitely, if you want to get on, if you can tell me something you want to talk about or whatever the case may be, hit me up. Like I said, I'm not stingy about it. Moving forward, PNWMFFL said, who's an NBA player that you loved and then lost total respect for? And I know you gave me an example of Dennis Rodman and you used some off the court stuff as your reason for why you lost respect for him. But I want to keep it to basketball with my answer because I can't think of a player I lost respect for off the court stuff, off the dome. So for me as a player, not as a man, I'm going to say Kevin Durant. I was pulling for him to be in that GOAT discussion against LeBron and to be the guy to dethrone him, to dethrone Steph, all that good stuff. And he came close. They were up 3-1 on the Warriors. You know, I was feeling it. I was liking what they were doing. And then they blew that lead and Durant caved. He went and joined them since he couldn't beat them. And, you know, I think he tarnished his legacy. Like nobody, I'm not going to say nobody, some people do. A lot of people don't give him credit for those rings that he won in Golden State because you pretty much went to a team that had already won a championship and was ready-made for a title. So you just kind of piled on to something that was already a success. You didn't build it from the dirt. Even if you were technically the best player on the team, it's hard to give you credit for that when you're looking at greatness. So now he's in Brooklyn. He's coming off a serious injury. And if they do it in Brooklyn, even though he's with Kyrie, that's a tandem. That's not a super team. I love tandems. Tandems are good. You need somebody to play off of. So if he does it in Brooklyn, now we're having a conversation about greatness. So I'm excited to see what he does this year. We'll probably get into that later based on some of the questions I saw. But on top of, you know, caving and joining the team that should have been your rival, all the stuff with the burner on the timeline and stuff like that was weird. I personally, like, if I was a fan still at that point, I wouldn't have been able to defend it. So I don't know. That must be a DMV thing. I remember Wale back in the day used to be on the timeline getting emotional with fans and stuff. So, again, we're going to see Durant with another chance to stake his claim in that greatness, that upper echelon. If you saw the GOAT series, you see he came out very high already. So, you know, he's technically in that discussion. But, again, doing it in Brooklyn is gonna help him get across that plateau I think he's at. Because of how he got his rings. Next question comes from Jacob Clendenning. And his question was, who's going to have the better sophomore season if health is not an issue, Ja Morant or Zion, I believe is how they pronounce it. And then he asked, who are the non-Mavs I'm most excited to watch this season? So first question, Ja or Zion, better sophomore year? You know, I had them ranked 1 and 2, much like everyone else coming out of the draft. I do think they're both special players. I think Ja has a strong team around him. However, with Jaren Jackson Jr. out for a while, I do think he's going to be fighting an uphill battle in this one. If Zion is healthy, which is one of the stipulations you said, I think he looks good physically, like he's slimmed down. Still strong, but slimmed down some. So, like, the baby fat looks like it should be gone. I have to say Zion. I think he's easily could average 25 and 12, maybe even close to 29 or so. Hopefully gets more active defensively, blocking shots and getting steals, getting out in the open floor. And for me, I question how much more scoring potential Ja's going to show this year. I think he averaged about 18 a game last year. He might break 20, but I can't see him getting up to 25 where I expect Mr. Williamson to be. As far as players that I am excited for that are not on the Mavericks this season, I really could go down a list. I watch a lot of basketball. I get League Pass so I can watch any game I want, anytime I want. And so first of all, Dame Dollar, I got to put him at the top of the list. My favorite player in the league. I think he's got a great team around him. I'm excited to see what he can do with a team around him. No excuses. Next on my list is Jrue Holiday. I've always loved him. Now he's in a position on a team with title aspirations. He's going to have a lot of attention on him for the first time. I want him to show people how good he really is and start getting those flowers that he deserves. Next, I'm going to go Russell Westbrook. I think he's in a new, healthier situation for him, and he's in the East. So I love it. I love that trade for him. I'm glad he's away from James Harden. Look, I can't. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I'm the biggest Westbrook fan, but I respect him as a man and like as his heart of a champion, if you will. I think he's in a much better situation in Washington. No, they do not have any defense whatsoever. But with Westbrook as a hard driving player, you got Beal who's a bucket, and then they just got shooters everywhere. Everybody's can score. That team is going to be, I think they're going to be fun to watch. And then next, KD. I mentioned it already. I hate on him for what he did going to Golden State, but I'm excited to see what he looks like this year. I'm excited to see the bounce back. Next is going to be Steph. Again, another player you may hear me hate on occasionally. But I was excited to see what he did last year without Clay and KD. We were robbed of that. And so, unfortunately, Clay has gone down again. So he's going to be without them again. They did add some weaponry for him, but I want to see what Steph does. I want to see Steph show what he can really do when he doesn't have all the help that he has had in years past. So definitely looking forward to that. And then finally, LaMelo. Obviously, I live in South Carolina. They are the closest team to me. I always pull for them to do well in the draft because I like having good basketball to watch. No fans in the arena this year, perfectly fine with me. But I'm excited to see what he does. I think he's in a great situation for himself. Think he'll eventually push Terry Rozier out. But I'm curious how quickly LaMelo comes along. I know he's already going to be a fan favorite. Even for people outside of Charlotte, people are actually going to watch Charlotte basketball just for him. So definitely excited about it. And I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Moving forward, next question comes from my man Josh at JSparrow1205, and he made me do homework. First said, award predictions for this year. So this one gets fun. I try to think of it logically, so I'm gonna break it down. I just did the main awards. I didn't do like all NBA teams, stuff like that. So first of all, defensive player of the year. I think Gobert has a good shot at taking it back. I think AD is going to be up there. And then I think Drew is going to get a boost because of how underrated his defense has been historically. And Giannis, of course, is going to be up there as well. So here's my stipulations. If the Lakers completely dominate the world this year, like some expect, I think AD gets it. If the Jazz finish top 3 in the league, I think Gobert gets it. If the Bucks dominate the East again and Giannis or Drew do something more than they've done in the past, so if Giannis blocks increase tremendously or his rebounds increase dramatically, then Giannis can steal it again. If that Bucks defense is like somehow boosted higher than they were last year and Drew is doing more than he has done in years past on a statistical basis, which is what a lot of these people care about, then I think that Drew gets it. And you might see that as a cop-out, but I'm just laying out the landscape. This is how this works. You need a narrative to get to that, over that mountaintop. I'm going to skip MVP for now. Rookie of the year. This one I took my time with as well. A lot of people like old buddy in Chicago, but I think he has too many guys that are going to keep the ball away from him to where he's not going to get the opportunity. Okaro in Cleveland, I don't think has enough guys to take attention away from him to where he's going to be able to do enough. So I'll come back to LaMelo. I think he's one of those guys. I think he could have an MCW type rookie year. Like, I don't think he's going to come out the gate scoring 20, but I think he can come out and score 14 with 8 or 9 assists, and then like 7, 8 rebounds. And if it gets higher than that, then I think he has an even better shot. I think his high profile, the fact that there's going to be a lot of eyes on him if he has like a big game against a certain team, I think that's going to boost his numbers. And I think a lot of those guys that are the most talented are on teams that are also way too talented and are going to take attention and or attempts away from them, like Edwards and Wiseman, stuff like that. Sixth man of the year, another tough one because we don't really know how lineups are going to shake out. I narrowed it down to 5 guys, and again, it just depends on how lineups shake out. I think Schroeder is going to be another candidate. I think Trey Burke in Dallas is going to be a candidate. I think he's going to be our bucket getter off the bench that we wanted Seth to be. And Seth, he kind of held it down, but he was inconsistent. I think consistency from Burke is going to be the key there. Dinwiddie's going to have a really good shot at that if the Nets don't end up trading him away. Dinwiddie or LeVert there. Gary Harris on the Nuggets. Jordan Clarkson on the Jazz as well. So those are my candidates, in my opinion. If I had to pick, I think it's going to be one of the Nets guys. I think you have to expect, and I hate saying it, but you kind of have to expect that Kyrie may go down at some point. And I think that Dinwiddie benefits from that for at least a few weeks where he gets to play more minutes and or start for a little while, but not enough to start more than half the games, and he steals that award. Most improved player was another tough one. Again, we don't know how these lineups are going to shake out yet. I've narrowed it down to Dante DiVincenzo and Gary Trent Jr. So Gary Trent Jr. showed a lot in the bubble and in the season when a lot of injuries happened. I think he's going to come back just as hot or hotter than ever. There's more talent on that team to take attention away from him. He's going to be able to get some buckets off the bench for that team. And then DiVincenzo, because of the Bucks' moves, I think I saw somewhere that he's potentially going to be starting at the 2 for the Bucks. So I think his volume increasing is going to help him get those buckets and get on the radar. Going back to MVP, I think Giannis getting 2 in a row and then flailing out in the playoffs, voters are going to be tired of giving him that award when he doesn't show that he earned it in the postseason. I think the Lakers are too stacked, and LeBron and AD are kind of going to push each other away from that award because they're, I don't want to say splitting votes, but that's basically what it comes down to. I think if the Mavs finish top 3, then, the Luka agenda will win that award. And the wild card I'll throw out there, I didn't write this one down, but the wild card I'll throw out there is KD. If the Nets finish top 2-3 in the East and he has a big season, then KD could definitely steal that award as well. What else have I got? I do have a Coach of the Year. I narrowed it down to Terry Stotts if the Blazers come out blazing. Whoever finishes that top 2-3 seed in the West, if it's not Denver or one of the LA teams, I think the candidates are the Mavs, the Blazers, and the Jazz. One of those teams ends up top 3, then their coach is Coach of the Year. That's Stotts, Carlisle, or Quinn Snyder. So I think all 3 of those teams are teams that people sleep on and don't expect to do well. They almost always overperform expectations. And whichever one does the most overperforming is getting that Coach of the Year award. Josh then also decided to make me do more homework. Shout out to my man Josh, and that's JSparrow1205. Does not tweet, but I'll say it anyway. He asked me who had the best and worst City Edition jerseys, and he also added that the Mavs City Edition jerseys were fire. So let's start with the worst. The worst ones, I gotta go with the Brooklyn Nets with the goofy font. It looks childish. I don't like that, if you recall from last year with the Mavs childish jerseys. Secondly, we're gonna go with the Bucks. I don't understand it. I don't like it. It's boring. New Orleans is number 3 on this list with I just think the blocking on the jersey, it's just the white is too much. It's too much white and plain and boring. So New Orleans gets it next. Orlando, way too much orange. Orange is one of the worst colors ever. And I think even if they had changed the pinstripes to a gray, that's the same gray as I think like the coloring is on the letters, or on like the interior of the letters or the stitching, they had made those pinstripes gray, I think we're having a completely different conversation. That orange in the middle of the jersey would start to pop, but when you make the pinstripes orange as well, it's just too much. It looks like a bleached jersey. And then last but not least, the Warriors, just because of PTSD purposes, don't like those jerseys. Best jerseys. First of all, I got to go Atlanta with the MLK joints. Beautiful, love them. Might see me in Atlanta. Might see me in some Atlanta gear. I'm not gonna lie. Number 2 is Memphis. I love the colors and the designs on the side, paneling of the jersey, just beautiful. Just like it looks like a shirt you can wear casually on a night out of town. Number 3, I gotta go put the Suns in there. The gradient is excellent. You know I love those historically with the Jazz and stuff like that. My sleeper, I'm gonna go with Chicago. I think it's a very clean, old school, classic look. I like it. I like the numbers, all that. It's beautiful. And then finally, I struggled with this 5th one, but I'm gonna go with Charlotte. The mint and the gold accents on it. And if you pay attention to the ones I chose, everyone except the Suns has the gold accents on the jersey. So maybe it's just the gold accents I like, but love all 4 of those jerseys. Clean jerseys and designs I can wear and not feel like I'm wearing a jersey necessarily. Moving on, we've got, and I don't know if you noticed, I put the Mavs related questions to the back. So once we start getting into the Mavs related questions, you'll know we're reaching the second half of the question portion. So the next question comes from @TheDonLuca. How long till we see big ball rotation with genuine point forwards quarterbacking the offense with other athletic bigs surrounding? So I took that question as not being Mavericks related. I think it's like a basketball, how the game is changing type question. I decided 2 or 3 years, honestly. I think we're maybe 2 or 3 years away from that. When you look at Ben Simmons, when you look at Luka, I can't think of the kid's name at Oklahoma State. I'm mad at myself. Point guards are getting bigger. Point forwards are the wave right now. You would have thought it would have happened earlier with LeBron, but guys are working on those perimeter skills. The big men are shooting more threes now. They're not working on those post moves. So I think Denver played around with it in the bubble. I mean, they got Bol playing it too at 7'4". So I think we're very close to that being a thing. And whatever team loads up on those big players that are 6'7" plus, that can do the guard stuff and hang with the smaller guards, then that team is going to be dangerous. So watch out for that. The Mavs are a candidate for that. So, what else we got? All right, Scotch V, and that's Scotch VEE, brings us our first Mavs question, and it is minutes per game. James Johnson, Josh Green, Tyrell Terry. He said etc., but I'm going to stick with those 3 because etc. gets interesting. So if this team is really going to be competing for home court like I expect, then I think it will be James Johnson that gets more minutes out of the 3 that were listed. I think Josh Green has a better chance to get minutes than Tyrell Terry. But I do think the vets are going to get the most run as the rotational guys. It just makes the most sense to me. I think Terry's like the 5th or 6th guard, depending on how you want to look at. I think Green has a chance to maybe sneak in there at some 3 from time to time. Next question comes from at the Tyler Boston. And I think I'm combining this one with another one. Yes. Yeah, we'll do these next 2 combined, and the next one, the third one is somewhat similar to the other, but we'll break that one off. So the first one, at the Tyler Boston, said, who should start at the 4 for Dallas, and why is it Maxey? And then Osu, and that's OSUU King, said, what is your ideal starting lineup with and without KP? So that's why I combined those 2. So I did answer this question on the Mind of Reese podcast with Kenny this past weekend. So, or I said weekend, it just came out yesterday. So a couple of days ago, Mind of Reese podcast with Kenny, we did go over roster lineup stuff. I'll give you my answer real quick. I want Maxey to start while KP is out. And I want James Johnson to start at the 4 when KP is back. My ideal starting lineup without KP is Luka, Richardson, Timmy, Maxey, and Willie Cauley-Stein. My philosophy being Maxey on offense is a shooter, Willie Cauley-Stein is a roller, and while Willie Cauley-Stein can block some shots, he also just gets in the way, and that allows Maxey to be in my preferred role for him as a secondary rim protector, where he can come over from the weak side and clean things up. And Willie Cauley-Stein can do some of that too in the reverse. So I like that potential on that lineup. And Patrick Engineer says, who do we want to play the starting center and power forward? And who is the best 5 on the bench, 3rd unit, 11th to 17th players, blah, 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 blah. So for me, if I was in charge, which I am very aware that I am not, my starting lineup, everybody healthy, would be Luka, Richardson, Hardaway, Porzingis, Cauley-Stein. When we play teams with some size, when we play teams that go small, then I would swap Cauley-Stein with James Johnson. So it would be Luka, J. Rich, Tim Hardaway, James Johnson, KP. So those are my 5. And you might say, why Johnson, Cauley-Stein over Maxey? Because I think Maxey has the most offensive potential, and we don't need all the offensive potential in the starting lineup. That 5th guy needs to be doing the dirty work. Everybody else, Richardson obviously is going to be doing some dirty work on the perimeter. I want somebody that's going to do dirty work in the paint. I don't want to hear about KP being a center or a shot blocker. KP being the lone interior defender is problematic for KP's legs. I would prefer Johnson or Cauley-Stein be out there with him. Off the bench, I would have Brunson and Burke. I know a lot of people may not enjoy that small lineup complementing the Luka J. Rich, but I'm fine with those 2 coming off together off the bench, especially when you include Dorian Finney-Smith at the 3, Maxey at the 4. Those are both cleanup type guys. And then Dwight Powell at the 5, Max Power back together. Dwight, not a great interior defender, but he can get in the way long enough for Maxey to come over and clean up, which is what I like. Then we move to the end of the bench. So the next 3 guys, in my opinion, Boban, Josh Green, Iwundu. I think those are the 13 on the bench. And then I think Terry ends up being that 14th guy. I think he bumps up if one of the guards gets hurt. And then, of course, 16 and 16. I've lost count. You know what? I don't care. Hinton and Bay, I think, are very, very deep off in the bench. We'll be surprised if they see any court time after the preseason ends. Moving forward yet again. And maybe I should take a breath. I feel like I've been going nonstop without breathing for a while. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Next is at Beatrix_88. And I'm going to reword his tweet because it is not child friendly. So, are you okay with all this Luka filleting? He said, I'm scared of all the hype praise. I have no idea how a 21-year-old man can handle this. Last year, he had to prove everyone wrong. This year, he has to prove everyone right, and that's a big difference. And so for me, I personally do not enjoy being a front runner. If you know me, you know that. I prefer when my team is an underdog. Like you said, proving everybody wrong is a different ball game. I enjoy being in that mold. That's who I've been all my life, is the underdog. So that's what I lean toward. I genuinely don't think Luka cares though. Like he seems annoyed when people ask him questions about his greatness and stuff. I really think he just enjoys playing basketball. I don't think the pressure has gotten to him yet. I think when he gets to a point where he's in Giannis's position right now, where he's been eliminated from the playoffs a couple times, when people thought he shouldn't have been, and then people are questioning that greatness, I think that's when it'll start to bother him. Right now, he's just having fun. The team is taking a step forward every year. If we get to the playoffs this year and lose in the first round, then we start to have to worry about how Luka's feeling. So I think this year we can enjoy it, enjoy the ride. If things start going off the rails early, then we can start to worry. But as of right now, I think Luka's good. At Allison_MFFL said, who's going to be our third highest scorer on the team? I saw some people saying Porzingis, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think bubble Porzingis, second half of the season, Porzingis was scoring almost 30 points a game. Say what you want about him coming off an injury. The injury he had is not that deep. Once he's back, it is what it is. He's going to be getting buckets. When I look at Timmy, I thought Timmy averaged more points a game last year than he did. He only averaged like 15 points something or other. Richardson is also in that range. I think his highest score season was about 16. It's going to be very close between those two. I think that Richardson ends up having a bigger role on the team this year, and so I'm going to go with Richardson. I'm also expecting the Luka effect to take hold of him. So if they're taking the same amount of shots, and I think Richardson's going to be more of a slasher than Timmy, I'm going to say Richardson by a nose. As the third scorer. Even if KP misses a lot of games, I think he's going to be averaging over 20 points. Next question comes from PDX_Mavs. Who is the worst player I would trade KP for? Let me take a sip off of that. So I was not paying that much attention to my mentions, but I did notice that this question got a little testy on the timeline. I won't address that, but I did do some research for this question. I had to go to the point per game leader list to kind of get my baseline for what I'm looking for. KP, I think, is safe, averaging about 20 and 10. I think he complements Luka decently on the offensive end at least. And if I'm trading KP, I got to replace that type of production. With that, I don't think I would do it for a guard of any sort, because we then would have to figure out what to do at the 4 or 5 or whatever. We need some type of complementary scoring, somebody that can roll, somebody that can get dunked, somebody that does some different things and is capable of doing different things in a different part of the court than Luka. I don't want a guard. So, eliminating guards from the list, I got down to 4 names. And I really tried to go lower. I just really couldn't get there. So, the 4 names I came down to are guys that are those borderline all-stars, because I think that KP is a borderline all-star. I came down to, and I came up with a list because everybody values players differently, so I want you to get an idea what type of player I'm looking at. So I came down to Brandon Ingram, Pascal Siakam, Nikola Vucevic, and Rudy Gobert. So that fringe all-star type of guy. And I, again, think that they all can play off of Luka very well in one way, shape, or form. And I don't care how you feel about any of those players. I think they would. I would be willing to make that move for all four, just because I think they're either as good as Porzingis or better, and I trust their bodies more. And that just kind of is what it is when you look at it. You might hate the Gobert idea, but I will say you lack vision if you don't think that the Gobert idea should even be fathomable. And I'll say even almost the same for Vucevic. I don't think you've watched him play basketball if you don't think you wouldn't do that type of move based on what we know about Porzingis and the constant fear and thought we have dealing with Porzingis. I love Kristaps. I want him to be that guy. I want him to be healthy. I want him to be the future. But until he does it, I can't be comfortable about it. So, again, last year my goal for him was to make it through the year. I should have been more specific. He made it through the regular season and then got hurt in the playoffs. So this year my goal for Porzingis is to make it through the end of the playoffs without a major injury. So if we can do that, I'll be happy. Now, just for fun, I took it a step further. In a vacuum, if we got a call to trade, do a sign and trade for Drummond, I would hesitate to turn that down. And again, this comes back to having vision and the health situation. If I got a call about Jonas Valanciunas, I would have to consider it. And again, this is about complementary skill sets and having someone there to do a job versus having to worry about them not being there to do the job. So, again, I hesitate on those two. I don't think I could pull the trigger. The four, Ingram, Siakam, Vucevic, Gobert, I think I'll pull the trigger on all four of those guys. I'll look forward to your messages about that one. And finally, we are at the end. My man, Jose Monteleon, the @JMontelli on Twitter, said if Luka wasn't white, would people think he was good? And if you don't know where that question came from, that was a topic of debate today on the timeline, is if Luka is overrated because he's white. The answer is no. Sometimes a guy is just good and the level of melanin in his skin is not a factor. I brought this up on the timeline as well, so a couple other people make the comparison. Did Eminem have more success than comparable black artists because he's white? As far as financial success, by the way, yes. Eminem himself has said that. He's more marketable to white audiences. He appeals more to white audiences. White audiences are the majority in this country. So yes, does Luka get more attention than he would if he was a black player, or more? Is he more marketable in that sense? Maybe. At some point, you hit a point where you can't be overrated. LeBron is there, and I think Luka is there. He's doing things that only LeBron and Oscar Robertson have done in NBA history. He's on record lists with guys that are easily Hall of Famers, top 10, 15, 20 of all time. So at that point, you've crossed the threshold to where it's impossible to overrate you. If you can be the MVP in the league, and if he's literally the odds-on favorite for the award. If you're considered potentially the best player in the league, you cannot be overrated. I don't care what color you are. If Zork Mavorkbork from Venus's third moon, I just made some shit up. From Saturn's third moon, from Titan, if a Titan came down from the stars, and they allowed him to play NBA basketball, and he averaged 29, 9, and 9, you can't overrate him. Just don't stop overthinking it. And this guy, in particular, was like, naming top 10 players as the guys who put up similar numbers. And I'm like, okay, all those guys are people that are in the discussion for the best player in the league. What point are you trying to make at this point? Find me some guy who's putting up similar numbers and is not being talked about like Luka is. His answer was Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal averaged less than half the rebounds that Luka averaged. Did average like 1.5 points more. And then 2.7 assists less. So is he really putting up the type of numbers that Luka is? No. Did he have the same success on the court that Luka did? No. He couldn't carry his team to the playoffs. So, and then he was ranked like 21. So he's still in that all-star tier, despite not having on-court success and despite having less than half the rebounds and three-fourths of the assists. Just say you don't like when white players are hyped in any way, and keep it moving. Again, I don't get into this type of crap. I could not care less where he is ranked. I'm not a front runner. I don't enjoy having guys that are praised and loved. I don't enjoy bandwagon fans and having to decipher who's who. So miss me with any of this ranking bull crap. I think the only one I really talked about was Zion. Like, I don't understand how he can be ranked where he is after playing like 5 games. But whatever. It'll all shake itself out on the basketball court at the end of the day. I expect Luka to ball out, be more efficient than he was this past season, which is my goal for him. I may put out some written content for the Mavs this season. I was thinking about doing it this weekend. I may push it back to just before the season. We'll see. But yeah, I think I'm starting to ramble now. I feel like I maybe said some things I didn't want to say, but it is what it is. I appreciate you guys, as always, tuning into the Bibs Corner podcast. I enjoyed your questions. Thank you for engaging me. Before we sign off, I'm going to remind you, hit my pinned tweet at Bibs Corner. Do the survey, please. I want your feedback. I want your input. I want to know what you like, what you don't, what you might want me to start doing that I'm not doing now. So hit that survey. Go hit the Mind the Reese podcast to catch me and Kenny talking mad stuff about the Mavs and all other peripheral topics. Again, Barack Obama popped in, so that was fun. And yeah, be on the lookout for some more podcast appearances. I'll be shooting those links out as they occur. And this is the part where I just start talking in circles because I don't know how to start or end things. So I'm just going to say peace and let y'all hear this outro music.